Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to this Ultimate Merch webinar, Masterclass. And very excited to have these venerable people with me. I'm going to start off with some quick introductions of who we have with us today. Um, First off is Gary Hustwit, who I have been talking about since I started talking about distribution and marketing. I've used his merch and specifically his merch in my presentation since I think 2008, like right when you started doing merch for Helvetica. So he as well as Jeannie, I consider two of the pioneers in merch for filmmakers, besides the fact that both of them are amazing filmmakers, that they're both pioneers in innovative merch. And I've also talked about Jeannie, I think, since 2007, 2008, 2009. So right around when she made Sound It Out. So, but for more film, and then I've worked with Amy Hobby on 1-800 on her own when she was doing some also innovative merch. And now she's starting a new merch company. And then I just recently met Eli, but I'm going to do some formal introductions, which I'm usually very terrible at, but I will do my best on this. Gary Hustwit is a filmmaker, visual artist, and CEO at the generative media studio Anamorph. He has produced over 20 films, but as a director, he is known for Helvetica, Objectified, Urbanized, and his latest film, Eno, the world's first generative feature documentary, premiered at Sundance 2024 and was shortlisted for an Academy Award. He hosts weekly conversations about creativity with artists and designers at Chance Operations. And as I said, he's one of the pioneers of merch for independent film. He also has a history in punk rock, like me. He started at SST Records, and I also started shooting Black Flag way back when. And so we have a little bit of shared history. Jeannie Finley is a British documentary filmmaker and artist known for intimate award-winning films. Her latest feature, Your Fat Friend, premiered at Tribeca, won the Audience Award at Sheffield DocFest, and pursued an innovative global release. In fact, all of Jeannie's films, she's pursued innovative releases. She's one of the pioneers in direct distribution, as is Gary as well. Both of them, if you want to know about direct distribution and independent distribution, Gary, and at some point I'd like to have them both on individual webinars to talk about their films and career because they are incredible. So let's see, I have a few more things to say about Jeannie. She has made films for HBO, BBC, and IFC, including The Great Hip Hop Hoax and the BIFA winning Orion, the Man Who Would Be King, and is known for such work as Seahorse, Sounded Out, and the Emmy nominated The Last Watch. Amy Hobby has produced over 50 films, including a feature about Nam June Paik, 1-800 on her own, which we had the pleasure of distributing theatrically, and all the way back to Secretary, which was one of my favorite films way back when, which was one of her first films. She is also the co-founder of Distribution Advocates, which runs the Marketing Innovations Fund. In mid-December, she is launching Cutaway, a new merch design and sales company focused on documentary films. She is also an Academy Award nominated producer in her spare time. And then we have Eli Valentin is the co-founder of Fourth Wall, a leading platform that empowers creators and independent filmmakers to design, launch, and scale their own merchandise, memberships, and digital products. So welcome all of you. Welcome to our wonderful panel, and welcome to everyone who's here. A few ground rules. Please feel free to say where you're from in the chat. We have moderators in the chat, so you can ask questions that when we get to audience questions, we'll answer as many of those as we possibly can. We also have some audience questions that you put in during registration. And then please don't, if you can maybe mention your film and your website once, but just not paragraphs and not repeated mentions of that, and just generally be respectful community in the chat. That's essentially all we ask. So great. To get started, and so Gary, why do you feel merch is important to your filmmaking process? And I'm going to ask Jeannie the same question.
Hi everyone. Glad to be here. Well, as you mentioned, like I came from music industry background, like working with independent labels and independent bands. And merch was just, something that you did. Just, a band on tour, you would always have T-shirts or records or posters, and for if you played to 200 or 300 people, and the band members would kind of come back after the show and be there, and people would get to talk to them and buy something, and it was just kind of an expected thing, and it was part of like both audience building or relationship building with your audience, but it was also how you got gas money and food to get to the next gig. So when I started getting involved in films, it was also kind of from a physical object thing. I mean, I started a DVD label called Plexifilm back in 2001. So I was really kind of obsessed with films, but also this object, this thing that you could, make and sell. So when I started directing films, again, it was just like a natural, organic thing to do. Of course, we would have posters and
So
and merch and everything.
if everyone can mute themselves also, that would be greatly appreciated. And if some of my people who are working in the background can make sure everyone's muted, that would be great. Thanks. All right, keep on going, Gary.
Yeah, so it's always been a part of my process. I mean, before Helvetica even came out, I think I announced the film 6 months before it was released, and even before it premiered, I think we'd sold $75,000 worth of posters and prints and T-shirts. So it's always been for me as much kind of an enabling thing with just to help funding and but also as a way to let people support the film, kind of bring them into the process a little bit. And yeah, so it's hugely important, and I've continued that with every film that I've done. We've done so many different but apparel, but also posters and prints and photographs and books and just everything.
Great. So, Jeannie, same question. Why is this important to your filmmaking process?
Uh, okay, this is an interesting question. Hello, John. It's nice to be here with all these good folks. I started off as an artist, and when I was an artist, I would make artist multiples. And I
Hmm.
like the idea of that handmade exchange. Like when I was a baby artist at art school, the very first piece of work I made was 500 pieces of there was like a photocopy of my face and it just said the word hello, and I handed them out in the street. And I like that sort of personal connection that you only get from this tangible physical experience. And I think like getting a sticker and sticking it on someone at the end of a screening, or as the giving people a gift, letting them leave the screening with generosity felt like a good thing to do. But also I like the idea of the storytelling of the film finished going into people's homes, living there in their collections, and that you have this sort of meaningful connection. And also, it's quite good fun. Like when I made the Great Hip Hop Hoax, I created 500 of these lie detector fish, like the little Fortune Teller Fish. The film is about two guys who fooled the world into believing that they were the greatest new hip hop act to come out of Los Angeles, but actually they were two rappers from Scotland who'd learned about the US from YouTube and watching Snoop Dogg videos. So like I redrew it by hand, and then I redesigned the back. So it sort of says, if the head moves, you're a born liar. If the tail moves, pants on fire. And so it was just a cute thing. And I didn't sell these. These were a giveaway that you only got if you came up to see me in the screening afterwards, and I handed it to you in person. And I'm always thinking, what does the film need? So when I made a film about Orion, the masked singer, I'd made a film about a record store, which is when we met, when I made Sound It Out.
Hmm.
And in the olden days, before I was a filmmaker, I used to make money from doing print and layout and design. So it was really, I just contacted the print manufacturers that I was so used to working with, and I'd go down, they'd do me a really good deal. And when I put my DVD out, I want it to be a double 7-inch gatefold, hell yeah, with, like
Yeah,
vinyl.
can you raise it up a little bit
These
Yeah,
so
we
we
need
can?
to
vinyls
see
are
the
hand
gatefold.
numbered.
Can you raise it
Vinyl.
up a little
Sorry,
bit,
it just
Jeannie?
said vinyls plural. It's not, it's vinyl.
Yeah,
And people own
lift
them
up
and
the
collect
gatefold.
them.
Lift it up a little
I
higher.
can't hear you, John.
Oh,
Oh,
am
yeah.
I muted? There you
No.
go. Perfect.
So, and I don't design, I work with a designer. I'm not doing these myself like I was back in the day. But I'm not daunted by um, the thing. And the business model on these is sell less and they're limited edition, sell them for more money and sell less of them, and they're really special, and create FOMO. The Sound It Out DVDs sold out in 2 days, I think, the entire
Wow.
run of vinyl records, and those ones were baby blue vinyl, and they were beautiful. It's
I still
such a
have
nice thing.
mine.
But yeah, I
I
love
s-
doing all this stuff. I'm constantly thinking about what can we do. I'll just show you some merch we did for Your Fat Friend. So some of them I was saying before we came on, I like being like a charming stone in your shoe. So for Your Fat Friend, I launched a project called Bums and Butts on Seats, and I wanted cinemas to measure their chairs. And we had such resistance from this, and I was like, this is the price of entry. So I made 500 of these and send them to every cinema that attends the Art House Convergence thing, and did a panel, because that
Amazing.
is persuasive. Me emailing you and me speaking to you is not as persuasive as getting that as well. And then in the summer, we did hot fat summer. So we did these koozies.
Genius.
Because in the summer it's really hard to do like social traction. And we were sort of thinking about where do all the cool fat people hang out in the summer? They hang out in a pool, they have a pool party. So we created koozies and sent them to key pool parties because they're hot pink, they're really visible on selfies, you get great content. So it's about an ongoing sort of discussion with the audience. So this is all, there's no rules about merch, but it should really continue the storytelling of your film long after the credits have rolled, is my sort of belief. It's like, what's fun? What's the stuff you want to keep? Like we're surrounded by so much stuff. And obviously with Your Fat Friend, we couldn't do t-shirts because sizing is a total disaster for fat people. And we couldn't do it in a way that was accessible, so we just did not do it. But we did prints, and it paid for our tour manager
Mhm.
to do that.
Great.
Anyway, I've
Awesome.
talked too much. I'm getting excited about showing you much.
No, no, no. You're already answering some of the questions that I have later, but we'll come back to those anyway. So Amy, why are you starting a merch label called Cutaway? And is this the press announcement?
Uh, I guess so. It's pretty early days. I'll start with this. I've been a filmmaker who lives with a musician, so it all comes back for all of us to the music thing. So having run a merch table for fun on occasion and seeing how that flows and works and excites people and engages people, yeah, I naturally wanted to pull that over onto my film producing side. And then also many years of working as an advocate, I saw a bunch of filmmakers struggling with, particularly doc filmmakers, actually just struggling with this idea of merch and how to monetize things and doing things in a timely manner, like integrating it. It just seemed like no one was resistant. It's just this thing that's floating out there. And I thought, well, we could sort of advocate for film teams and help as a sort of concierge service in a way, from Kickstarter to what happens in production, to design within your film, to the website, to the premiere, to the gather, to whatever, like create like a holistic attitude through talking and advising. So I partnered with this boutique design company, Bird by Bird. They do a lot of 2D animation as well as graphics, and they've done a lot of
Mhm.
titles and different things for me over the years. And we just started to get super excited about it. And I know we'll hear from Eli, but one of the things we're doing is building out something on Fourth Wall. That's like one part of our process, which makes things super organic. And another, we'll talk more about what Cutaway is all about. But yeah, we just, talking particularly doc and merch, we want to
Mhm.
advocate for that.
Good,
Yeah.
good, great, awesome. Eli, how did you get into this? What is fourth wall? And a little bit for now, how filmmaker, but
Yeah,
we'll talk more in depth later, but like why
got
filmmakers should
into
think of.
yeah. So filmmakers, I really like the examples that Jeannie said about making it fun and how merch. We at Fourth Wall, we sort of started with the foundation of building for creators. We thought of creative people that build community, and then it started with the sort of YouTubers, podcasters, and now it's grown further than that to include filmmakers, musicians, because at the end of the day, the art that is being made, what is developing is some sort of community, right? It's some people like it, and then they find interest in a conversation around that piece. And so to build that community, another piece of it is merch. And we say merch in a very broad aspect because it includes more than just t-shirts and hoodies. I really like the tape measure. It's sort of like building all those things that either tie to your film, tied to something in the plot or the story, or it's something that you thought about that your audience will appreciate. And that's what will create the best merch. It's not the specific product, it's the intent and how it sort of connects with the community. So, anyways, we started this back in 2019, and we help make things easier for folks like you. You're great at art, you're great at making film. You may not be an expert in e-commerce. You don't have time to do customer support. You don't have time to think about sales tax. You don't have time to think about like, hey, who is going to ship my orders? Where is it going to print? So we want to make things easier. We call it democratize, so that it doesn't matter if you're like a big filmmaker or a small filmmaker, you have the same tools at your disposal. And then you do what you do best, which is create, right? Be creative, and then use us for the boring parts. So that's what Fourth Wall came about.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I want to talk about the value of merch, which Jeannie's already kind of touched on, which is besides money, which we'll get to next. What do you feel is the value of creating merch? And you've already kind of touched on in this, but I just want to mine this a little bit more um, for audiences and as far as part as the filmmaking process.
Mhm.
And Gary, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Um, so I don't really see it as marketing as much. Like all the posters for all my films, like I want them to be something that you would want to actually hang on the wall. So like I was just thinking about it. None of my film posters have like a press quote. I've never had a poster that had a press quote on it, or stars or reviews or anything like that. I'm just trying to kind of design something that's like a visual extension of the film that you would want to have as a piece of art. So I don't see them as marketing in that sense. And like we as filmmakers, we are visual artists, and I think documentary filmmakers maybe don't don't think that or don't believe that sometimes. But a lot of what I do is some sort of visual extension of the film, whether it's the posters or the small format things. Like this is a like we've done a lot of letterpress prints. Like this is like a mini poster for Helvetica that's like really beautifully done letterpress that we might do 100 or 200 of or something like that, and we've done those things. And then even using doing still photographs. I take a lot of photographs on location and when I'm making the film. So like for my film Rams, like this was a photograph I took of Dieter Rams with his 911 and just a editioned photo. So it all kind of, like Jeannie was saying, extends the kind of world and the aesthetic of the film into these different areas. This is another thing I think for documentary filmmakers. we do so many interviews and only a tiny fraction of them end up in the film. So like I collected all of the raw interviews, I mean edited, but
Mhm.
for three of my design films into just one book because there's so much more in these conversations that never kind of gets out. So I thought that again, if people were interested in the subject matter, this is kind of more of that. So it's both kind of an extension of the movie, but it's also this invitation for people to kind of be more involved and yeah, and I don't have any qualms in saying like it is part of filmmaking. It enables me to make more films. Having the merchandise and doing these other projects around, even if they're not directly involved in a film. Now it's just things that I want to, if there's I don't know ideas that I want to explore that are documentary ideas, but I don't want to make a film. Maybe I'll just do a photo series about it, or maybe I'll do a book about it or something else. So having a that relationship and that kind of network and that and people out there who kind of repeatedly come back and want to support what you're doing and want to be involved in these creative projects, I think is really, really important. It's not just like a one shot. I made one film. I need to, let's sell some merch. This is about sustainability as an artist and as a filmmaker. So that's I think how I approach it.
Yeah.
And it's fun to make stuff, and some of these things are things that I really want to wear or see or have or
Exactly.
do. So it is a way to kind of scratch that itch too. But I think I've been lucky that there's I've kind of connected with an audience of other people who kind of want the same things, and that's all I make the films for too. It's just things that I want to see movies about that don't exist. And there are other people out there, and this is just having the merchandise and doing these other things is an extension of that.
Yeah, one of the things I want to put a little point on is that they're really, I think part of what you're speaking to is that they're very kind of essential for long-term audience engagement. Like if you want to have a relationship with your audience over a long period of time, and it's exactly what you just said, is that's partly why you do this merch is to have this relationship with your community in a sense. And I think, and this leads me right into Jeannie, who I know this is real. My understanding of Jeannie's practice is that if this is really important to her, and if you can speak to that a little bit more, elaborate on maybe some of the things you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, I think the merch is an opportunity to sort of extend the way that you want to work as an artist in the world, I guess. So for example, when we Oscar qualified Your Fat Friend 2 years ago, and I think 280 films also qualified at the same time. And there was this moment where I had a conversation with our lovely PR guy, and he was like, "You need to save $5,000 at least just to send for your consideration emails." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And that was to send 5 emails. And I know that they can be a lot more than $1,000 each. And now, as an Academy member, I auto filter all of those FYC emails into a folder because there's hundreds. And all I'm looking at is money at that. That's the hundreds of thousands of dollars that's been spent. And so with Your Fat Friend, I just sort of thought, what's a better use of money? We're not going to win an Oscar. We didn't premiere at Sundance, so we haven't got a massive promotion. So I'd rather commission artists to interpret our film and to sell those as merch. So we've got some money. So this is like an alternative poster, which is a watercolor that we had commissioned for Your Fat Friend by an artist in Nottingham who I really like. So the original poster was like this. We call this look the jazz toddler. I'd worked with like a rock star photographer. And we also had like social images like this, but we had them printed, and it meant that I could do these in all different sizes. And people are asking about money in the chat. Sometimes I'll do one that's small, that's cheap to post, or is easy for people to sign a screening. And then if they work, you look at your data and you can get more printed of those. Or, I've done limited edition prints with Hat Show the Orion
Oh
things
yeah, hat
were,
show, sure.
I got a Hatch poster where you have no control. You just say, "What's the text?" And the a poster arrives and it's amazing and it's hand numbered. This is by Kim Thompson. Someone's asking in the chat, and we do different versions. So there's like a cheap version, and then we did limited edition on lovely paper. But sometimes it's about being an artwork and being an artist. So I worked with a 3D glasses manufacturer in Leicester, near where I live. But when we were doing Orion, because it's about a masked man, I wanted to make a wraparound artwork where you got the audience to think about what it means to wear a mask. So these are recreations of Orion's masks, and we did four of them, and they were limited edition. And we gave these to every single person who came for a screening. So they were amazing photos. You know, there's instructions of what to do, how to upload it online. There's a discount voucher for watching it online. So it's this sort of like virtuous circle. And also, we just had so much amazing content at screenings. And it felt like it made people think about all the yeah, what does it mean? What's the core story of the film? Can this wraparound artwork, which is a term Dr. Judith Aston coined to describe the work that I'm doing with audiences, can that make you feel the film more deeply? Does it feel different? And what is something that is evolved purely from the film? So, you know, people are asking for master lists of vendors. In a way, it's like it doesn't matter. You need to find the best vendor to fit the exact fit. You know, I spent ages looking at tape measures, and I realized that the best thing to do was to buy the cheapest tape measure that I liked the design of. And then I just measured it and I made these spongy gold reflective stickers exactly to fit rather than find a manufacturer. Sometimes the most Heath Robinson approach, the most craft, you know, documentary filmmakers are tenacious, never let it go people. Apply those skills to your merch,
Right.
is my
Yep.
advice.
Okay, good. Amy, do you want to talk
I'm
about
gonna
this?
I'm gonna I'm gonna just add a brief thing because of course I concur with everything Gary and Jeannie were talking about, but I'm gonna add a thing for documentary filmmakers in particular because as I'm out and about in award season, I've talked to some doc filmmakers who have very political films and they're hesitant about merch or they're like, what? Maybe that's not for me. Is it just fun? But I do think there's a very good place for merch for political films to get out your political message, to find your tribe, to connect with people and start a conversation. So a very tiny example of that is my partner, who I mentioned is a musician, was playing at a festival in Tasmania, and the festival was doing some sort of political thing because one of their local politicians had done some racist thing against Muslims. So they made these T-shirts for everyone to wear that said, "I don't like it." And then the name of the festival in Arabic. And it was a provocation, right? But it was a provocation. It gave unity to everyone at the festival, like a common mission. It spoke to it. And I wear that T-shirt, you know, around the East Village. And people are always like, "Hey, yeah." It's pretty, yeah, I don't like it either, you know, but at least it starts that conversation. Like, what is that about? Or what don't you like? And I do think and then I do think what part of what we want to do with Cutaway is have collections. So we have the environmental collection, which has different films under it that can cross pollinate, right? So you go
Hmm.
to like this is not a environmental example, but we have just 2 or 3 pages up right now, and because we're selling merch for the Ani DeFranco film as we head into TVOD. Her fans are very specific. We know some of those fans. One of those fans went on and then went over to another music film site, the Dory Previn film, which isn't even in release, and bought the zine for that. So it's like there. I do believe there can be, you know, if we build a community around this and like-minded films can band together, that there can be something more than the individual film.
Mm.
That's right. So beyond the story universe of one film, you can do the story universe of a community of
Yeah,
films.
exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah. Eli, can you talk a little bit about how you see your the people who work with you, creators and filmmakers, using this, in other ways besides revenue in creating connection with audience and creating additional value?
Yeah. So there's three ways we see sort of merch being used in the creative space. One is the obvious marketing, right? Getting that out there. The next one is fundraising, doing a short film, trying to get some funding for it, selling products that you think will resonate with that community or that are related to that film. And then finally that's the community aspect, right? And so depending on your angle, which you can use all three, we see creators be very successful. We see creators selling over $50,000, $70,000 of products, and then also low amounts, a couple $1,000. But that is a difference that will, makes a difference in the budget and sort of like additional funding that can help with one thing. But the coolest part is, like Amy mentioned, it's a conversation that starts when people wear or use it. If we think about when we were back in middle school, before we were, most of us, before the internet, the way we expressed ourselves was what we dress, what we did, and we found community that way, right? The internet has allowed that to grow even more, where now we can find community because I may not have to dress this way to like punk music, but I like it and build that community. Well, merch can be part of that conversation regarding filmmaking and topics and creating that conversation. Um, so yeah, so that's sort of how we see it. Creators being used. Another way they do is we have a membership aspect, which is similar to a Patreon. It's all branded to you, and sort of people can sign up, either pay monthly or yearly subscription. And we see people share behind the scenes. We have a voice actor that shares how she prepares for different characters, she switches from voice to this, how she practices different voices that she's workshopping. So is that sort of bringing the audience, bringing the audience with you on that process is the most fascinating. As someone that I call myself non-creative, I'm an operations, I'm an accountant. I envy, and what I love to see is that sort of creative process and get transported through that. It's very fascinating for me. So like something like membership can also be another aspect of merch, community building, and sort of that marketing to get your word out there, get the word out of your film.
Cool. All right. So
Could I
then,
just chime
yeah,
in, John? Something
yeah.
that Amy kind of mentioned, this idea. Also, because I get asked this a lot, people tell me, "Oh, you make films about design and music, and of course you can do merch and T-shirts and stuff, but my film is about a murder or something, and like how that doesn't really work for me." And I still think there are respectful ways to do if we lean back into the visual art aspect of this, like either a silk screen print or something that's really like respectfully done, but that still kind of, again, it extends the aesthetic or the idea of the movie or the message of the movie. It doesn't have to be, a beer koozie or something. There are other ways to do this that I think are appropriate to both fiction or documentary films of every subject matter. You just really need to just, dig deep on the concept and really put some thought into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go to revenue next, but I'm going to punt that down the line, even though Eli started talking about it, and then go straight into, how do you decide what products to create? How do you know what's just keying off of what you were just saying now, Gary? How do you know what's right for your audience? And kind of like this is, getting beyond, including t-shirts, but getting beyond the t-shirts. And Jeannie's like shown an incredible array of things that she's been creating. But just want to talk to each of you as far as like how do you figure out what's right for your audience and what's, and just to start off saying that I started off in merch also very early. I did a lot of merch for my film, my documentary about graffiti and street art, Bomb It, way back. We did a bunch of different t-shirts. We did limited poster editions, signed and numbered poster editions, etc. One of the things I found in t-shirts is that, and just to kick this off, is I went out and spent a lot of time finding t-shirt blanks that I would like, and also my wife advised me on and there were these distressed, really cool t-shirt blanks, but my audience didn't want those fucking, excuse my language, you know, kind of like West Side t-shirt blanks. They wanted the very cheap Hanes beefy tee. That's what sold. So you have
Yeah.
to really, I'm just gonna say, you have to think about who your audience is and create the merch for them. So just to key that off, and
Can,
that was a very early lesson I learned.
yeah.
So how do you
Can I
guys each deal with that? Yeah,
can I
Eli.
take this one real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Because the base of this is what you're going after is who your audience is extremely important. Um, right? We've seen in the creator space, we've seen people with huge audiences trying to sell a t-shirt that sells almost nothing, but then they put out a notebook or a journal and that goes through the roof. And it's because who your audience is, what you're sort of connecting with them, either through this film or through your sort of your past film, is very important. And then I think the biggest hurdle of we see when trying to sort of get that first initial, when you people think about merch, they're very constricted of t-shirts, hats, and hoodies. Think a little bit more outside of that. And then Jeannie and Gary both mentioned great examples of sometimes it just doesn't need to be as big as you are, envisioning. Scarcity is good, and then something handcrafted or something, as you sort of test the waters of what your audience appetite is, because your audience, my appetite might not have the budget or the want or the need. So that's the biggest part is find what your audience, and then sort of try different things and think outside, like the posters, there's notebooks, there's all these other things, but I like the postcards. I like the idea of buying it yourself, making a sticker, make your own, ship it to your audience or gift it to your audience. So audience is very important.
Yeah, and if you start the process early, you have a huge advantage, right? So if you start at Kickstarter or way before, like you're kind of testing it, like, are these popular, are these not? And you get to know your audience. I mean, Gary's audience transcends any of his single films, and so he knows his audience super well and what they buy and don't buy and what they engage with. I found, like, for example, for me, like the music films that I've produced, the music documentaries, we had great success with zines because what we could do is put sort of outtakes, in it. So here's an example of one of the zines, that has like stuff from the archives, photos
Mm.
and diaries and stuff from the archives that didn't end up in the film that are super cool. Barbara Streisand's old phone number, stuff
I
like that.
love those, Amy. They're
And
so
the
cool.
and then for the Ani DeFranco, we did a zine that was a libretto one way. So basically, it had, because in the film we don't play the whole song, so we had every single song in the film, the full lyrics, and then you flipped it upside down, and then you had like what we called excerpts and outtakes. So also outtakes, but that worked great for music fans and sort of rabid fans of those singer songwriters. So, but again, like we got to know the audience. We were selling the merch on the road with, John knew this because I was asking every venue, can we set up a merch table? What can we do? And we traveled a lot with that and learned a lot through that and actually talking to the people who were at our screenings.
Cool. Jeannie, how do you know what's right for your audience?
Um, well, usually we've got a pretty like engaged social media relationship with the audience, so we're asking
Hmm.
questions. Or
Mm,
there's just stuff that I just think is fun. And
hmm
and I've made mistakes, and also I'm trying to make stuff that's quite small because I just have an intern sending stuff out or an assistant. So I always pay everyone, and I want stuff that can go and be still be in small letter size for the UK for postal. So that's and also I don't want to be a store. But I have got some really like nice storage now. So I'd much rather have a small number of expensive things. And then when we're doing screenings, it's really nice to do accessible things that anyone can buy. And also, I always give things away. And I've sort of financed this incrementally. So it's not like it's like I know now, like I'm making my 10th film. I know what may well sell. So I'm not spending a fortune on stuff. I'm getting I put my producer head on when I'm getting the good deal with the print company. And I'm usually
Mhm.
working with direct printers. So, I know the printers rather than doing stuff online. Um, Yeah, so you just try it out and then also ask sometimes with your fat friend we'd sort of talk to the audience and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Vote. Which one do you like?
Mhm.
And
That's great.
if people are sliding into your DM saying, take my money, take it. Like
Mhm.
seriously. Someone was asking about price points. So I think that this has a 4-track vinyl EP. So I knew ahead of time I wanted to make this. So when I'm working with the music supervisor, we're negotiating the rights so that it can be in all social media trailers, but also as a 4-track EP. A 4-track's great because you can get quite a lot of music on there, but it's not as expensive as an album. And we're only making 1,000 of these, but they retail for, I think they're £30 now. So I don't know what that is in American. I don't know, $40 maybe.
Mm.
Um,
Depending on the day.
Depending on the day. Yeah, we're having a good time at the moment. So someone asked me to flash the jazz toddler. So I'm just going to put that. This is our official poster, but the poster is based on a diet book that's in the film, and the
Mhm.
typeface comes from that book. The book was called Help Lord, the Devil Wants Me Fat. So there's always everything is self-ref. I sort of really believe in the idea that the film will show you the way. So if you always follow the creative impulse that made you want to make the film, then it will show you the way. That's like what I emailed you when you first asked me to do this merch thing, because I was like, there is no masterclass to give. It's just like listen to your film, listen to your audience. Don't make stuff that's wasteful and rubbish. If you can make stuff that's sort of ecologically fine, because also we don't need more rubbish in the world. But hopefully you'll sell it out. There's nothing better than selling stuff out. That's amazing. And people
Mhm.
always love stickers and badges. So.
Right. Cool. Gary, how do you decide? One of the things that Gary, like I first saw and still I have the slide of, is you made a hard drive of Helvetica and stuck it in a sealed envelope and then signed and numbered them. And as a way for people to watch the film. And I'd always say, there's no one who's going to open up that package in order to watch the film. Like everyone's going to watch it some other way and hold on to. I'd be really curious if I'd really love to find out how many people still have those on their shelves.
I
But
wonder
just
that
as
was for yeah, that was for Objectified.
objectified, sorry, you're
Yeah,
right.
it was a USB drive that we screened the logo of the film on and then mounted it on a letterpress card and did all these things. Yeah, I
Right.
have no idea. I think we sold 100. It was like 100 copy limited edition sort of thing. But in general, like I guess I should probably be more scientific about this, but it's just like I'm the audience for my films, so it's just stuff that I want. Like I like t-shirts and I like vinyl records and posters and books and photographs and all these things. So I'm really just making things that I would want. And so far that seems to have worked out. So I don't try to kind of overthink it that much. And as Jeannie said, it's got to be organic to the film. It's got to be something that makes sense with the movie. And Yeah, it's just I mean, The price points are all over the place. The depending on what it is. If it's a poster, it's 40 or $50. If it's like a more of a limited silk screen or a letterpress large format poster, it might be 125 or $150. Um, T-shirts are t-shirts, there's only so much you're gonna, be able to sell a t-shirt for. But I feel like the visual art things are you can probably have a kind of a higher price point for those. I mean, God, we've done so many things like obviously like tote bags and books and just over the years the USB drive. I mean, when discs were still a thing, when DVD and Blu-ray, that was the physical thing that you sold. So I
Mhm.
think now a lot of filmmakers struggle with the like that doesn't exist now. It's all digital. So what is the physical thing going to be? Um, was that a cassette tape? What was that?
No, this is something new. I don't know if it's good or not yet, but it's
Is
called
this the
Film
film trade?
Trade. These
Yes,
are
I'm going to have film
cards.
trade on. Yeah, it's
Yeah, and you
actually pretty
basically
cool.
tap it. It's like here's my film, $10, like,
Yeah,
and you can hand it.
yeah. So I've
Cute.
been talking to them. We're actually going
Yeah.
to be doing a limited version for the librarians, which we're working on. And
Yeah.
so we're kind of like test marketing those. So they're kind of like the perfect. I'm going to have them on another webinar.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
almost
A
thinking of
life
having them on this
after
webinar, but
is
it's
there's a case
essentially you
study
just
we
look them
have
up.
that's coming up.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's called film. Oh, you're doing the case study, Amy, on them, or
Well,
distribution advocates, or we can
it's not
talk
going to
about
be
this
published till
later.
next March. We can talk about it later. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because a life
Anyway,
after used it and they're doing a case study with us, but before that,
okay,
yeah.
great.
Can
So
I
they're
just add
basically
something?
cards. Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, Jeannie. Yeah, go
No, no,
ahead.
no,
No,
please, carry on. I want to know more about these cards because they sound cool. But I
Film
just had
yeah.
a thought specifically about the librarians.
Yeah. So you just film trade is the company. So just Google them, and then it's essentially the modern version of a DVD at your events to sell. And so it basically you tap it, it has the film contained in it digitally, like however it
Oh,
works.
Mike Clark is on the call. There he is.
Okay, there's Mark Clark. Okay.
Filmtrade.org.
Yeah.
That's a follow
So
from
Thank
me.
you, Mike.
and you can have all kinds of settings. You can delay the release. Like one of the things we're doing with the librarians is because we're still in theaters. So we're not, so when people buy them at one screening in December that we're doing this test case of, but it doesn't activate until January.
Yeah.
And then my suggestion was that we'll then put some extra content on there that people can watch
Yeah.
immediately, and then they can see the film later. And then you can have them pass from person to person, or you can limit them to one person. There's all these different aspects. So you're welcome,
Yeah.
Mike. And we'll as I said,
We'll
we're going
talk
to have
about our
you on in the.
kickback later.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Um,
in love with the idea of that. It's just
Yeah.
like there's something about vinyl,
Thing.
when I was making a film in a vinyl record shop, there's something about that sort of tangible support for
Mm,
artists that
yeah.
is something there's a visceral experience you have when you can hold something in your hand, I think
Yeah.
is really important. I
yeah.
just had an idea for the librarians that we did like 25 years ago, and it's worth knowing about the way that people do print. When you're working in a print house, there's always a bit that gets cut off the end when people are printing things.
Oh, yeah.
So we did this deal with a printer because because I was in the printers and I knew that they were always like cutting the bits off. And I was like, that's the exact size of a bookmark. If I give you a
Mm,
design, will you print them for free? Because you're
mhm.
just going to throw it away. So I
Yeah.
had thousands of bookmarks and we promoted this arts project I was working in by distributing them to all of the libraries in a massive area, and every single time a book was taken out, they put a bookmark promoting the project
Genius.
that we were doing in the books. But I would
Yeah.
do, if I was involved in the librarians, I would be doing that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm
Hey, Kim
involved in
Snyder.
librarians, and
Yeah.
Amy's talking to Kim shortly.
Yeah.
You can have that one
So
for
you're
free,
you're
but I mean,
actually you're
Thanks,
actually
Jeannie.
talking to the librarians right now.
Kickback for
So
you.
yes. So and yeah, so let's briefly, I want to just let's do quickly revenue, and then we'll move into some practicalities. So we can just do this. Eli, do you want to talk about the ranges that I think you already mentioned them, but like what, like a couple $1,000s, and is that gross or net that the filmmakers are making upwards to $75,000 on a particular, is that on a particular item, or is that for like a campaign?
Campaign. And these are profits, the numbers I research. So it's usually I should have checked the revenue. Instead I looked at the profit that the creator makes. One thing I would say is sort of um, eh, set your expectations properly, right? So you will have colleagues that will have you know home runs from the first go. It's an evolution. Like it's learning as you go, and so it won't always be a grand slam. Just like Jeannie mentioned, she's been doing this for many years, and look how creative all her items are, and how successful they later become. So in terms of profit, we see creators make from like a couple $100 early on, where it's like very still building, it to a couple thousands. We've seen some making 50 to $60,000 on a campaign, around either the product, the film, or voiceover that they make. So it's very dependable on the community, your marketing, the way you approach it, the way you design it, and how you involve everyone, and how you promote it. So again, one of the biggest thing is set your expectations. It won't always be a grand slam from the get-go, but just don't get let down by the success of it. So to think of it as like, how people received it, what feedback you got, and did they like it or not, right? Those that
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, that's why I really framed like the first 50 minutes of this conversation has been about what is the value other than revenue, and that there is,
Yeah.
I've always felt that merch has so much more value to connecting audience to you as a filmmaker for creative purposes. But I know there's going to be a lot of questions about revenue. So that's why let's just spend a couple minutes, everyone's, 30 seconds, whatever people want to say about revenue. I think, Jeannie,
I can
you
have a
have like
oh, okay.
one thing. Okay, Amy, you
I
go.
have something very specific, so I can report.
Yeah.
So, we did for the Ani DeFranco film, 1-800 on Her Own. We did a film drop on Gather, and we used Gather in specifically because they have a merch feature. And what was effective about Gather is the you sell the merch at the point of sale, right? So basically, you're checking out the ticket, and then you can put up to 10 items right under the ticket. So you're like in that buying mode. I'm buying the ticket, and we had a range of things. So we sold 5 postcards for $5. So we had the little thing. Oh, why not? And then up to t-shirts and theatrical posters, right? So I thought that having it right at the point of sale was great. So for that screening, the total that we made from that one screening was around $10,000, and 6,000 were tickets and 4,000 was merch. So I think
Wow.
that if you have a fan, there's this factor, there's a ton of factors, but like that ended up being sort of how we looked at it, like a 60-40 split.
Right. Right. Cool. Gary? Or
So I mean, like over the course of, it's all been almost 20 years since I sold those posters to for Helvetica. I mean, it's been definitely seven figures for sure over the course of that time. I mean, it all depends on the film, and it all depends on the where in the arc of the film's release we're putting the like merch out. But I mean, just generally, each of the films when we've done a merch around, like say something like Rams, it's been 100 over 100 grand for sure, and posters and prints and things like that. If we have merch at a screening, if I bring out t-shirts and posters and things, which I've usually done. I mean, Eno was such a brutal. I mean, I went to 100 events. It's hard to like schlep around that much merch, but we did do some tour posters and things like that. But in general, like we're at a screening, it might be anywhere from $1,000 of merch revenue to maybe $2,000 or $3,000 for a really really big screening. I Tebbit, somebody was asking about markups or, pricing. I have a very like unscientific and strategy usually when I make if I make something like a t-shirt or whatever. I usually say like you gotta at least make it 3 times what you paid for it is like the
Mhm.
price. If something costs you $10, you got to sell it for $30. There's all kinds of fulfillment and everything in there in general, but I feel like if you can stick with that, you're gonna do okay. You're going to cover your costs and make something out of it. That's again a very basic rule of thumb. If it's something that's a high dollar item and maybe that you're going to make $100 on regardless. If you sell it for twice what you pay for it, whatever, then it's you can change the numbers around a little bit. But that's kind of like my bottom line. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, it just again, for Helvetica, it was just massive early money to help us finish the film, those
Mhm.
posters and prints. I have a story that I tell. This is funny, and this is, I mean, kind of non sequitur, but at the end of making Helvetica, I was like, this somebody that I've been trying to film the whole time, trying to get a hold of them, suddenly kind of popped up, and like after ignoring emails for months and months, and this was a couple weeks before we were going to make finish the film. And there was this old guy. He's like, I'm in Switzerland. I'm going to be here for a week, and then I'm going on vacation. You got to be here. So I somehow used like frequent flyer miles. I was broke at that point. Used frequent flyer miles and got a ticket to Switzerland. I got there in the middle of the night. It was like raining. I tried to check into the hotel, and it was like I didn't have any money. I had nothing on the credit cards. I couldn't check into the hotel. So I had my email list and I'm like, all right, flash sale on posters, 50% off right now. Like, oh, and it's like sent out an email blast from the hotel lobby and then just sat there and waited until like enough sales came in that I could check into the hotel. So
Oh
um,
my God,
it's
that's crazy.
it comes back to this importance of again having that relationship with the audience and being able to kind of I didn't say, hey, I'm in Switzerland and I can't check into my hotel, buy something. But people do want to be part of creative projects. And I think this
Mhm.
idea of we're the producers and they're the consumers, and that I think is wrong because so much of the time, we're filmmakers. Creativity is like our day job, okay? But there's a lot of people out there who it's not their day job, and being involved in some little way, even kind of buying a poster or buying a T-shirt to your film, is a way that they get to be part of a creative project. So don't think of it so much as selling stuff. Think of it maybe more as like giving happiness. You're providing an opportunity for people to like, feel a little bit more fulfilled and part of what you're doing. So I think we maybe need to kind of reframe that dynamic a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm part of that.
Jeannie?
I'm part of
Oh,
that. Indeed, I'm part of that crew as a non-creative. I wholly agree. That's how we sort of get that little bit of, hey, we're part of this project. So love it.
cool. Jeannie, you had one, you wanted to talk about an anecdote of revenue, which sounds similar
I
to
I can't
Gary's
remember.
story.
Well,
It
I
was like
think I
how the merch paid for your tour manager.
oh yeah. So when we went on we went on the road with your friend, and it was brutal because we were doing. We sold out the biggest screens, but everything sold out. So then we booked double screenings. So we had uh, sometimes half an hour and an hour in between the screenings. So that would be much time.
Mm,
But it meant it paid for a tour manager to drive us around the UK. Because
yeah.
in the olden days, that would have been me and dragging a suit. And the rule was the merch had to sit in either a portfolio or a suitcase. It couldn't be any bigger. Because, like, it's quite hard when you're buying stuff and it arrives. Like, and my production office is just full of boxes. So it's like, can it be compact?
Mhm.
Have you got envelopes that people can take the stuff away in? And it's like a lot of logistical thinking that is just
Yeah.
like not fun.
Yeah. Have you
Uh,
got
Well,
plastic? Have you got plastic sleeves that the posters can go
exactly.
into?
I have
So that
so many of
if it's
those.
raining, like if it's raining that night of the screening, their poster won't
Yeah.
get ruined when they leave. All this stuff.
But it's nice to be able to give, I'm a full advocate for being involved and working with stuff, but I don't like design my own posters anymore. But I can have a good conversation with a printer and a graphic designer
Yeah.
in the same way I don't write the scores for my films, but I've got a music degree, so I
Mm,
can talk to the composer, but I don't want to do it. My God,
yeah.
no.
And
Uh,
can I put in a plug now for graphic designers because graphic designers are your friends. They
yes.
will not only and it's also not about like you telling them what you want. It's about a great graphic designer who can look at your
Mm,
film and kind of come up with something that you never even thought of in terms of how to represent it, or also merch and things to kind of do with the film. So yes, great graphic designers like
yeah.
they're worth people complain about it or like put a tiny item in the budget at the end about graphic design. There's actually, I've had many cases where the graphic designers just like did something with a poster that I would have thought of, and just that was what made the poster great. It wasn't just because my film or whatever. It was something that they saw or an idea or some visual, motif that they saw that they brought out. So they're worth the money.
yeah.
I
Totally
totally agree.
second that. Like one time, a certain director said, "I have to use this poster designer. I have to." And I'm like, "They're $10,000." Like at the time, that was like, that's so much money. And then I was like, "Okay." The director was of a level that I couldn't argue, but and the poster came back like this guy watched the film, deeply thought about it and came back with something that just blew my mind and
Mm.
was so distinctive and encapsulated in this big picture way. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. From then on, I was like, hell yeah. Like, it's worth it. Yeah. If you get the right
And, and
person for the right film.
And also, realistically, things like trailers and posters, they may have an audience that is far greater than your film.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, obviously,
Mhm.
we can all sort of kid ourselves, oh, yeah, millions of people, and you have those times where millions of people do see your films, but there is a world where the poster has got to be the film. The trailer has got to be the film. The merch has got to be the film because those are the things that are going out into the world to represent the work that you've made. So
Yeah.
they better be like working together with it or amplifying it.
Great. So I want to get into some practicalities, and just kind of like, because I think this is daunting for filmmakers. Like, oh my God, I have to do fulfillment. Jeannie, you do it in many filmmakers do it out of their homes and offices and just do self-fulfill. Um, but just kind of if each of you could talk a little bit about the practicalities of creating and fulfilling merch and what's the best way for people to conceptualize that and get started. And maybe we start with Eli, who has a
Yeah. I was going
company.
to say Eli has a company
Yeah.
that does
Yes.
that. So,
Yeah.
and I've
I
used Eli's site so I can talk after him.
appreciate it. So there's a couple of ways you can do, right? When you're fulfilling these products, it is taunting, it is time consuming, and regardless where you do it, shipping costs, people will always complain. Shipping costs is always expensive. Unfortunately, and the more you do, like now in the holidays, sometimes there's strikes and whatnot. But it depends what you're doing and at what scale. If you're doing just a handful of things, it might be better to just send them, self-fulfilled, have an assistant or yourself send that out. And if not, go find a partner like Fourth Wall. There's fulfillers out there as well, but I recommend Fourth Wall. That can do that for you, where you can have the most daunting task is collecting the addresses, making sure that you have that, shipping it, making sure that they're emailed when it ships. If something happens with it, who do they contact? So you have to think of all those things with Fourth Wall or platforms similar like Fourth Wall. you can sort of outsource that so that you don't have to worry about all those things and sort of, hey, send us the, if you did it something at home, you did 100 photographs that you want to sell to your audience, you can send them to our warehouse and we'll fulfill them for you with a minimal cost and then the shipping that the customer ends up paying. And then we'll notify them. It's all branded to you. And it simplifies those things so that you don't have to, because I in the early days of 412, I had to ship, I think it was 700 posters from a creator that he signed them themselves and then rolled them up, put them in a box, put the label. And I will tell you that it is a taunting project and it is exhausting and you'll make mistakes and paper cuts are nothing to play with. So yeah, so you can, depending on your scale, you might want to find a partner like 412. We'll be happy to help you sort of take that off your plate so that you can use the creative uses, use that energy for something else that will make your marketing or your film or your promotion period more successful.
All right, cool. Gary, do you want to? Oh, Amy, go ahead.
I'll just tag on because I am using Fourth Wall. So I love Fourth Wall for a couple reasons. Yeah, they take care of all that stuff. The profit margin's still pretty good. And one thing you can do is, so we have our zines on Fourth Wall, and I have them in my house. So you can self-fulfill, right? And you get 100%. So if I'm selling the zine for $20, I get a notice from Fourth Wall that says you have one order to ship. Fourth Wall is in a very organized way, gives me the address, and then I self ship. So you can do that, plus build out like a design page with Fourth Wall, and Fourth Wall has super good quality stuff for all the basic stuff. So for t-shirts, they have the same quality shirt as when I made my super fancy ones like John Reese that were soft and popular. Mine were more popular. And so you can upload your design and play around with it. So Fourth Wall is like a great fulfillment, and I've looked into a lot of them like Hello Merch, all that stuff. So highly recommend it, not just because Eli's on the call.
No.
But yeah, I also, look, if we have specific boutique-y items, we have to order a batch of them and store them in our house and go to the post office. I happen to like going to the post office, and there's a post office right across my
Right
street.
down your, I know where you live, Amy, and I know where that post
That
office
post
is
office
because
is
that's
right.
now my post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can look out the window and see if there's a line and then just go over, and I know all the weird guy with the ponytail and all that stuff. So I'm a little funny like that, but I kind of enjoy all of that stuff. But we have a partner who's a publisher who deals with stuff, but you also have to think about sales tax and all these other things. So anyway, Cutaway's hoping to ease that process overall for people and make it sort of custom built, right, for whatever your needs are, whether you need us to outsource a special designer that's just right for your film, or if we can handle it in-house or whatever.
Right. Gary, how do you handle your practicalities?
Yeah, we do everything in-house. We have someone who works with us who basically is coming in several times a week and shipping out orders. There are things that are a little bit more fragile or delicate, posters, prints, photographs that we're printing that are not really going to work for a fulfillment house. Basic stuff like t-shirts and things like that. And obviously, the kind of print on demand places and fulfillment places there's a lower threshold to entry there. You're not screening 100 or 200 shirts or whatever it is, up front. We can argue kind of like things about like the durability of or the longevity of screen printed versus digital printed apparel. But in general, we screen our stuff in batches. You can get around a lot of that by pre-order. Instead of just making something and selling it, you can take pre-orders for an item and just say, hey, this is a limited thing. It's only available for ordering this week. Get it in and just pound away, and then you've got exactly what you screen print them to order or whatever it is that goes for posters and things like that too. Don't overlook the idea of pre-ordering things, and then people kind of expect that it's going to be a few weeks. So you're pre-ordering, you're taking orders for stuff, and then you're using that money to then make it and ship it out, and you can build in a few weeks or a month in there in between the ordering and the fulfillment process. So yeah, we do all that. Like we have a shop now called Chance Operations, which is both kind of a place where we get to talk to people about creativity, other artists and filmmakers about their creative process. But then we also kind of do collab projects with them and those as merch, and then all the different merch from my films or random things that we just kind of want to make. Just it's fun to have like a place for all that stuff where and it's not just for me or my films, it's also for other artists that we like too, that we can collaborate with. So that's been something that now is launched like 2 or 3 months ago, and I'm having a lot of fun just kind of creating things around that, but also talking to people about why they make things and what their creative process is. And I always feel like I'm a sucker for process. I want to know why artists do what they do and why designers do what they do. And I don't know, I'm not a ceramic artist, but maybe there's something I can like take from that person's process. So that's kind of all wound up in this Chance Operations thing. So that's our latest way that we're kind of doing merch. The other thing is this is just like a something simple. um, I don't do webs if I don't do a standalone website for each film. Like I try to just make it all on my website. So there's no Helvetica site, there's no Eno site. It's just at my website. So you can carry people over, audience over, supporters over from film to film to film to film, and it's not like you've got 8 different, kind of orphaned websites that are just all kind of operating on their own. So having it be more, and that goes for mailing lists and social too. Try to keep it as kind of unified as possible, instead of all these kind of fragmentation among different projects you're involved with.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's great
Can I
advice.
can I
Okay.
add there?
So let's just say, Eli, we'll do you after Jeannie. Can Jeannie go? And
Yeah.
then we'll do,
I was
yeah.
just gonna say, Gary, you're very wise. We ended up making a separate website and socials for Your Fat Friend, and then it just blew up. And so we've now got this other baby that needs tending. My fulfillment stuff is just quite boring. I have a Squarespace site that deals with all the tax. It's pretty cheap. Um, and also, what I do sometimes is I've got an intern in America, so I give them a box of stuff and they can fulfill it for me internationally. So it's within the country rather than coming from the UK. If I've got stuff that's like super, I'm not sure how. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this publicly. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, I would get stuff made in the States and it would ship to the intern instead of coming to the UK.
Yeah,
This
that
is a
makes
way,
sense.
this is a way of doing it. But one of the things I always do is um, put in. So I always try and get a really good deal. And there's no. Everyone's saying share your vendors. It's like it doesn't. It depends on the project. So I'm researching per project. But what I always account for is so I can give quite a few away. And then so I count that in because it's nice to be able to give stuff to people, and to not sort of feel like, oh my God, I've got to make this much profit on every one. So I'll usually keep at least 50 to 100 that I can give away just because it's
Right.
nice.
Yep.
Yeah, so I do that in my
Um,
math.
yep. Eli, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to Gary's point on the pre-sale. I think this also adds to Jeannie's point early on. Not only that helps with production and being able to front, it also helps with scarcity. And it's very common nowadays. If you think of go the one that everyone has heard is the Supreme right brand. Most when at their peak when they were selling out, the way they were selling out, they had not produced anything. They were dropping on their website and then producing after they did, but they had this scarcity built into it. They had very little to no waste, right? Like you knew exactly how much you had to print. You maybe built a little bit for any breakage or anything, but it helps a lot. It helps with that scarcity, controls cost, and us as consumer, as long as you tell me, we are very sort of patient. If you tell me, hey, this is a pre-order in the like Fourth Wall supports that right now, where you can say, hey, this we won't ship in 2 to 3 weeks. So when I get my confirmation, it shows 2 to 3 weeks. I know we rarely see we have some that do pre-sales for things that ship 4 months, and people wait, and rarely do they complain. So don't underestimate the power of pre-sale.
Okay, great. I mean, I've been answering one thing is I did read all the questions in advance and I've kind of incorporated them into all the people who put questions in the pre-registration. I've been keeping an eye on the registration, the questions that are coming up in the chat. And I know that some of the panelists are already answering some of the questions in the chat. So I know we're almost running out of time here. But one of the questions that came up in pre-registration is how, if someone is in, how do you keep merch online? Someone with one film, how do you keep the merch going maybe year after year after year as part of that long tail of the film distribution? Any thoughts on that?
Like again, I try to make it not super film specific in terms of where where people are going to get these things. I mean, and we also have merchandise that comes out 6 months, a year after the film comes out. I mean, the hope is that these films have a lifespan, and there are still new people kind of coming to them every day. Like kind of, or we all, once the film is out there, has been out for a few years, like, oh, everybody's already seen it, or it's boring, or whatever. Nobody's seen it, really. Like 99.9% of the population has still not seen your independent documentary. So it's always being discovered by new audiences. And that can go on for years and years or decades after a film has been released. So as long as there's some way for people to still find it and find you, and then wow, the poster, like I want that thing. There will be some sort of some level of demand for it. So I'm still selling Helvetica related stuff almost 20 years after the film has been out. So and it just might be like a new idea, or someone in the audience might be like, hey, are you ever done this? Or the film came out in Korea, are you going to do the Korean poster? And I'm like, hey, that's actually a great idea, like, let's do the Korean poster. So you just sort of keep it going, and you don't want to feel like you're flogging people with like, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, year after year after year. But some kind of a mix. I always think of, like, if I'm sending an email blast, there's always something that's like not a sale thing. There's always something that's cool and free, or watch this, or check this out, or read this, or something. And then there might be a new item, or something we reprinted, or whatever. But think about that dynamic, year after year with the same group of people that are supporting you. You don't want to be just like, going to them for cash every month, or whatever, for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way that audiences experience your work is never linear as well. Like, I always have like a new film, when I have a new film come out, and people are going, and then they'll look at what you've done before and go, oh, you made that. And then they might buy. So sometimes it's really nice, like people will buy everything, and they'll get a little gift of the
We
box
hope.
set. And
We
it's
like those
so
people.
cute and lovely. But I always imagined, oh yeah, you make one film and then they'll come with you to the next film, and it never happens like that. They'll watch one thing and then go, oh, you know, oh, you did that. I'll watch that. And it's really nice. So I think just leaving it, mine just sits on my website dormant until someone's ready to pick it up. And also, I think it's fine. Like, if you can store the stuff, it's fine. I'm that person who's on eBay trying to find like Powell and Pressburger film posters from 1946. Merch doesn't go off. I want that old stuff.
I love that so much. That makes me love you all the more. I do think we'll see. It's sort of I love experimenting, John, but one of the things we'll be experimenting is there sort of a discovery element across films if we can create collections and have a bunch of films on our site, in the way that Gary has all of his films on his site. He's a singular artist, but like you're like, oh, if you like Helvetica, you'll like this. I'm not talking about the algorithmic recommendation, but like the Ani DeFranco fan who bought the Dory Previn zine, it's like, oh, I like zines. What other zines are here? And so hopefully by aggregating some high quality doc merch under one sort of label and banner, we can create some community around that. We'll see.
Sure.
Hopefully.
So can maybe do each of you have like maybe 1 to 5 tips for filmmakers, just as a kind of a sum up? I know you've just given all these tips, but what would be the 1 or 2 or 3 things that you would say? My alternative question in these last minutes is thinking about, well, and maybe we do this first, is thinking about Christmas, like and buying seasons, and how much you think about like, and when do you start preparing for this massive juggernaut of buying seasons, which happens, which we're in the middle of now. And then, so I'll ask that first, and then if you have one closing kind of tip for filmmakers, does anyone want to start with talking about the holiday season?
I'll start and answer both so then I can be done because when I go last, everyone's already said everything I want to say. So
Good.
I don't really think about the Christmas and buying season. I mean, look, we'll do Instagram posts. We'll do, a little extra, get this for Christmas. But, oh, and Fourth Wall actually has wallpaper you can design. So maybe I'll do Ani DeFranco wallpaper. But I don't really think, I'm just trying to build something a little different than the seasonal thing. My one tip is start now. Start when you start making your film or before. Gary does this. I'm sure Jeannie does this. And think about it holistically. That's what I'm hoping as an advocate in this space to grow, right? Think about it from Kickstarter to merch table and beyond, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I mean that's great advice. I think that I would never announce a movie without already having like merch things ready to go. Like the minute I announce it, there's a print or some kind of cool art, piece that goes along with it, even a year before the film is going to come out. And then kind of, as it gets closer, kind of like changing that mix. My one, I guess, piece of advice, and something that, Jeannie mentioned too, is like don't worry about the vendor or how are you going to get it made. Worry about the concept. Like think about the idea behind what this is. Yes, you can put the logo of the film on a t-shirt. Okay, that's easy. But if you put some creativity into what it is and what the context of that piece of merch is going to be, I think you can come up with some great ideas that fit any film subject or release. So yeah, don't worry so much about who you're going to have it made or what the vendor is. Worry about what it should be and why it should be. I think that's the big thing for me. I always think about this with like, I love cinematographers, don't get me wrong, but it's always like obsessing over the camera and which camera is going to be. What'd you use? What do you use? They all look great now. All the cameras look great. Worry about the idea of the film. Don't worry about what camera you're going to use to shoot the film, Worry about the concept. So put more thought into the concept behind the merchandise and less in about how it's going to get made.
Cool. Eli, you want to go next, and we'll finish with Jeannie?
Sure. Gary hit the nail on the head there is about your audience. And I love that analogy of don't worry about the camera. I'm not a filmmaker, but that is something that a lot of people, it's across industry, across creative, that people focus about that, what they know, but know that us in the audience, we just appreciate the thought that went into it, and sort of how you thought about the product as opposed to what or the quality. Well, the quality is always there, but like the minute detail of the quality. My biggest advice outside of using fourth wall is be patient. It's not always works out the first one. It's an iteration process, right? It's investigating what your audience and how it resonated. But yeah, definitely my main advice would be use fourth wall.
Okay. All right. Jeannie?
God, that's amazing, Eli. I would say don't I would like be a bit crafty about the distribution of your stuff. I was just thinking like when we did the record shop film Send It Out, I got every independent record store in the country to stock it because I contacted the person that does that puts the records in the record stores. So sometimes it's worth being a bit crafty and thinking outside the routes that you're supposed to go as a filmmaker. And then I just wanted I saw Gary Bjorn-Suk Kam say this thing at a conference. He's a Korean filmmaker. He said, the project is the sun and the money is the shadow. If you follow the sun, the shadow will come. The money will follow you. So just always pursue the creative sun of your project. And I know it sounds quite like, oh, what does she know? But I think it's a
That's very
really
cool.
good way to think about directing your work.
Yeah.
Because life's too short to make rubbish stuff and to have boring merch.
Excellent way to end. Love it. That's so awesome.
You couldn't have
So
scripted better. That was phenomenal, Nini.
that will be in the recap next week for sure. It probably might be
Yeah.
the lead off of the recap next week when we post it. But Gary, thank you so much. Amy, Jeannie, Eli, thank you so much. And really, your generosity is so appreciated and welcome, and sharing all of this incredible wisdom. I think this is like the best thing I've ever seen or read, and not to be bragging, but I think this is the advice that you've given to filmmakers about merchandise is just better than anything I've ever seen out there. So, and it's all because of you guys. And audience, thank you so much. There are, I think, almost 200 of you here, and really appreciate it. And yeah, if you're subscribe, I should say, to my Substack, because then you'll know about these things that we do in the future, and you'll get the notice of the replay coming up. But I think most of you are subscribers to my Substack already. So, and those of you who aren't will be next week. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
John, for putting this
Thank
Thanks,
together.
you.
guys.